Okay. Now, let's see. Let's see if that worked. It says that it's still offline, but maybe if I go like this, go live. Let's see. Is my stream going now? Live. It says it's live. Skip this ad. Our alliance is over? The fuck's the matter with you? You dumb or something? It's because I'm up in there, but you know what? Do it. Something went wrong. Okay. My stream is back up on Rumble.
Things,
cool.
But at the end of the day, people are going to have standards for what's said on their network. They are going to have standards for what is presented to them. Now, there is a little bit of, kind of out of both sides of your mouth, because when this Firestorm first came up, Jeremy Boring of the Daily Wire, kind of after everyone speculated on the feud, Jeremy Boring of the Daily Wire, he's actually the head. He's one of the people in charge. Ben is not. He's one of the hosts, even though he was a founding member. So he's someone with a little more authority, and he made it very clear that he would not be firing Candace Owens because of her positions on Palestine and the conflict between Palestine and Israel. And so there was this understanding that, okay, yeah, we might disagree with what she said, but and this was specifically what he said in the tweet was, as long as she doesn't violate the terms of her contract, we pay our hosts to have opinions, and she has opinions, and so she does that, and that's kind of the end of the story. So you kind of understand why people could be confused about Candace Owens being fired. Okay, well, she gave her opinion and now she's losing her job. Again, there's always standards for what people say on a network, and you can understand their right to go ahead and let Owens go if that's their choice, but it does put you in a weird position. I mean, Daily Wire and many people on the right, to be fair, talk a lot about free speech and cancel culture. In fact, Daily Wire picked up Gina Carano, right, and put her in a movie because she was fired from Disney for viewpoint discrimination because she said something on Twitter that Disney didn't like, and therefore they she's like mildly right wing, and their tolerance for that is basically zero. And so that's why she got fired. And a lot of people who subscribe to these networks, these conservative outlets, do so because they expect to hear opinions that they wouldn't hear anywhere else, and they expect them to kind of be able to say what they think. And so there is some, there I could see how people make the case for hypocrisy there. However, I think Owens knew what she was doing, right? Again, she'd already created that tension had already been created. Whether that
I want to see what this guy's channel is about on here. Nick Land, case against democracy.
Like the taste of fresh apples? At Angry Orchard, we use real fruit from our 100-year-old orchard. And 2 apples in every bottle of Angry Orchard. So relax with the crisp Angry Orchard hard cider. Madly refreshing.
No, don't leave! No!
Pleasure to be here, and I hope I'm up to the task. Ready to talk some land.
Yeah, like I. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I've got a great stream with a great guest I think you're really going to enjoy. So I started a series where we look at the work of philosopher Nick Land. He's somebody who had a lot of impact on the neo-reactionary political sphere. Somebody who is really influencing people who are kind of talking about politics now, but hasn't gotten as much love as, say, somebody like Curtis Yarvin, because he tends to be a little harder to read, a little more difficult to tackle. And so I'm inviting different guests on to break down passages from Nick Land so we can better understand kind of the concepts behind them and how they apply to the world we see around us. Joining me today is YouTuber Last Things. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yes!
Oren, it's a pleasure to be here, and I hope I'm up to the task. Ready to talk some land.
Yeah, like I said before, this is somebody who it seems very intimidating at first, and I understand he is somebody who uses some language that does obscure what's happening there, kind of maybe overcomplicated in sections, but his work is really important, and so I think it's worth taking the time to kind of slow down, take key passages and kind of break them apart.
Loser.
Now today we're going to be reading from
I'm going to have to kill him
which
right
is
off
the
the bat.
same document we were reading from on Monday with the Prudentialist. Different section though here. This is going to be section 1. Now what's interesting about this again is that this document is in response
What does he
to
do here?
Curtis Yarvin and his work over at Unqualified
He keeps himself blocked
Nick
away
Land
from...
was somebody who was a Marxist, was somebody on the left, worked a lot with a very kind of radical left-wing people, but made an interesting journey over to kind of the right, and his interaction with Curtis Yarvin's work was a very important part of that. Now, Last Things, you were telling me you wanted to talk a little bit about kind of your interactions with Nick Land, your understanding, and how that kind of relates to Curtis Yarvin's work.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I'm a fan and admirer, and I second everything you have to say about about the man. I think a few things to kind of put on the table before we dive into the text. You're correct that this is very explicitly, as people will see, a response to Moldbug directly. Yeah, he quotes from him quite liberally within the Dark Enlightenment. And what I'd say about these two thinkers together, and it's funny because I think both of them, they have very different styles, but I think both probably cause plenty of readers to close their laptops or throw
Thing
the
I'm
book
trying to take.
if they have a print copy.
What a
across the
dumb
room.
fuck!
Because they both can be very, very dense and filled with a lot of allusions that might not be that clear.
Oh, he's gonna slam
I think both
bread.
also have a pretty biting and wicked sense of humor. I think one thing though that distinguishes Land for me is this is a criticism that I think you and I share, Oren, and I think I've heard you articulate this on a few occasions. One of the big, and I love Yarvin as well, but one of the big issues that some people have taken up with him is that he's not a particularly theological thinker. And for all of his critique of a kind of materialist technocratic,
He's not smart enough to understand
society, he is in some ways kind of still a creature of that world and its denizen. There's not a lot of kind of theology or overriding metaphysics. I don't think that Moldbug really talks much about good and evil, although that's not true. He does, although when he does, he's quick to sort of formalize it and materialize it. He's got the essay, There's No Such Thing as Chaotic Good, and with Moldbug you have a thinker who sort of equates good and evil to effective and ineffective government or order and chaos. Very kind of utilitarian, kind of pragmatic measurements of the good and that which is evil. And I think with Land, by contrast, you do have somebody who's much more of a, I think, deeply theological writer. I think people associate horror a lot more with Land, and I think, funny enough, he not just doesn't just inspire philosophers and nonfiction, but he's had a fair amount of influence on a lot of fiction. You can see sort of the shadow and influence of Nick Land in a writer like Zero H.P. Lovecraft. Moldbug coined that phrase, Cthulhu only swims leftward, but Nick Land is really somebody who kind of took the Cthulhu aesthetic, kind of the Lovecraftian horror, the cosmic horror, and ran with that. And I think more fully expresses that. And I think you do have kind of a more religious thinker, a bit more of a pessimist. The feeling that I get when I read Moldbug is, despite all of the kind of cynical and unsettling observations he makes, you have a pretty jolly Virgil on your journey. He's like reading Kurt Vonnegut or something like that. You got somebody, he might be describing the end of the world, but he's doing it with like, a skip in his step. I think with somebody like Land, you've got somebody that's kind of stopping to process a lot more of the kind of horror and existential dread and cosmic implications of a lot of Moldbug's thought.
All right, let's see if we can kill. All right, here we go. We're getting it down. One more roll. All right, I think we can go. Fuck. No, really? Attack purple? No shit, dumb fuck. Let's see what he does. No! Don't fucking attack me! Fucking douche, Canoe. I went and helped you out hard. I need to quit helping people. Is purple gonna fucking bot out? Nope. No! What the fuck? Did you just open him up for me? That's what it looks like he did. And I think he's going for it. Yes! This is what we needed. Purple sucks, bro. Why would you do that? I have been attacking purple, you dumb fuck. You want me to fucking slam him? Sneeko lives Islam, says Christ is king. What? Based?
EO of Daily Wire at the moment. How is saying Christ is king?
First of all,
wait, let me see. Sneeko leaves. Oh. Well, they bought it out. Let us see what... red does here. Ooh. Do I have a 10? Yeah, I got a 10. So. I don't know if red's smart enough to know what just happened. So we're going to bet on that he doesn't understand. And then if he does, I just eat him right then because I have more troops than him by quite a bit. I think I gotta go to, I think I gotta get a different. All right. All right. Oof, that wasn't that good of a move right there. All right, let's see. What the fuck? Is this actually Sneako's account? No. There. Why is there nothing on here? Alright, how much? Many troops do I have? Ba-ba-ba. We're gonna go like this. Boom. Nice phase. Alright. Oh yeah, let's look up on Twitter because I did hear that a bunch of people were talking about how saying Christ is king is anti-Semitic. Christ is king. Retry. Why? What the fuck is going on? Why is it? What is rate limited? Well, I just got on here. I literally only read one post. What the fuck? How the fuck am I rate limited? I haven't been on Twitter all day. How the fuck am I rate limited? That's fucking gay. I haven't been on Twitter today. Okay. Well, that just makes no fucking sense. Okay. We are. In front of the nation, we are. Fuck. Okay, I got an idea. Yeah. We'll see what happens now. See if that moves. Because let's watch this on Candace Owens.
How do I do it all? With a little help. And to support my family's immune health, I choose Airborne. It has an unbeatable amount of vitamin C, plus a unique blend of immune-focused ingredients to turn up our immune support. Airborne, turn up your immune support.
Wake that ass up early in the morning. The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, just hilarious. Charlemagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Oh, they're not gonna like this one.
We have Candace Owens.
Candace Owens.
Welcome.
Hello. What's up,
How you feeling?
I feel great. A little tired. Had a wedding this weekend, but always feel great.
Back to New York. You're originally from here, right?
Yeah, I was born in New York, raised in Stanford,
so-
and then lived in New York after university for like 7 years. So I worked
Let's see what
just 2 blocks
happens
away from
now.
here.
What part of New York?
Did I live in or?
Was born.
I was
raised.
born in White Plains.
Oh, White Plains.
Oh,
Okay.
there
By
we
the
go.
Bronx. Okay.
What is the Candace Owens origin story? I mean, I know a little bit of it because me and you actually used to have a lot of conversations back in the day before she changed her number. But
You was mad about that.
I mean, I did change mine,
yours
but
too.
Girl, he was mad about that. He was like, I've been hitting up machine going,
because it kept going blue. I was like, is she just ignoring me?
No, I wouldn't have ignored you. I would have answered. I changed my number. I try to do it every couple of years. You know?
Okay. What for? What? Just because?
Because then you collect all these people that are texting you. You're like, actually, I don't want to talk to this person anymore. But I
Right,
don't want
yeah.
to tell them I don't want to talk to them anymore. I just changed my number.
And I'm sure the more you grow, a lot of your family members hit you up for money and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's usually not family members. It's just random people from your past that haven't spoken to you in forever, but still have your number, and will text you and ask for a favor.
Like Charlemagne.
No. It wasn't him. It wasn't about him. I actually should have messaged you my new number.
Where did all of this begin for Candace Owens?
You know, I feel like I have just a very regular story. Like I said, like I was born in New York, raised in Stanford. There was nothing, particularly that stood out in my childhood that made me think that I was going to go into politics. I feel like I landed into politics kind of accidentally. And I say accidentally because I thought I was a liberal my whole life. I thought I was on the left my whole life and really didn't pay attention to politics in any meaningful way. And then, when Trump was running for office, I didn't want him to be elected. I was like this, not because I thought he was a racist or a sexist, but just because I thought it was crazy to go from Obama, who had a certain decorum about him, to suddenly this sort of brash New Yorker. But I thought it was weird when all of a sudden the people that liked Trump, everyone thought he was like this iconic symbol of business. He was in rap songs. Trump was a status, flipped on him in 1 second. I didn't buy the narrative that he was in the media for 3-4 decades, and suddenly you wanted me to believe overnight that he was like Adolf Hitler and a racist. So I just didn't
There
trust
we
the
go.
media's
This is what I
narrative about
wanted.
him, and so I decided to actually listen to what he said. I still didn't vote for him in 2016, but I wanted to just listen to what he actually said. And then when I saw what he was saying versus how it was being reported, I just found it to be extremely dishonest. So I started researching more, learning more, and then I got kind of angry, like just with the lies, because I do think Black Americans are intentionally manipulated emotionally by the media and, kind of kept dumb but emotional intentionally by the school system. And I started reading up on like Thomas Sowell, Shelby Steele, a bunch of black scholars I originally had dismissed as Uncle Toms. And, irony now is I get calls an Uncle Tom all the time. So I got what was coming. But yeah, and then I realized that actually I've always been a conservative. I just didn't know it. And economically speaking, of course, the conservative arguments make the most sense.
Does that bother you that people call you an Uncle Tom?
No, not at all. First off, because if they read the book, Uncle Tom was the hero. But also because I get it. How can I fault people for something that I would have engaged in for the majority of my life? I thought the same thing about black conservatives. Like, I thought it was this betrayal, but I never actually understood it. It was just an emotional response. And I think that kind of is, if you come out of the public school system, I can't imagine how you could be a black conservative when just the way that they even tell us our own history is just not true,
Do you think that that's true with most people though? Like when you think of a Trump or just anybody, you're fine with them, but then you learn like their politics, or you learn what they believe spiritually, and then you're like, you're turned off from it.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's necessarily the politics. I really do think the media plays the biggest part in it because Trump, as far as I know, Trump's been, maybe he used to be a Democrat, but he's been a Republican and a conservative for a long time. I mean, we know he had to have been a conservative in terms of economics. He's wealthy, so
now
you'd be hard pressed to find someone that's wealthy and advocating for Marxist beliefs. But yeah, I just feel like it's more about the media wants power. The media has a vested interest in things politically, and they like to make us think that we're having this open conversation and we're learning the truth about people. But these are just hatchet smear jobs, libeling people, and I think deluding a ton of people to turn against their own best interest.
So were you more anti-media?
Hopefully that 8 hits and not the 20.
Well, no, I actually, once I actually heard what he had to say, I was like, that's a pretty solid pitch. I mean, it was his Dimondale, Michigan speech particularly. He got up there and he just started listing all of the statistics in Black America in terms of poverty. I mean, these were just real statistics that he was talking about. And his pitch was basically like, you've been giving your vote to Democrats for 60 years. Why don't you just try something different? I think that's a pretty good elevator pitch. Like, hey, you've been doing the same thing for a long time. I'm not saying I'm amazing, but why don't we try something different and see if it gets better for you? And then suddenly I flipped over to CNN and it was Don Lemon's crying. I think I'm maybe being, but it was just, they were so dramatic and they were lying about what he said. They're like, he looked you in the face and told you you were poor. I'm like, that's not what he did at all. So I just got interested. I'm a very curious, interested person. If I get interested in something, I will just take it all away, read books, and I'm like, why are they doing this? Why are all the media companies that I believed my whole life just lying about it? Just say what he actually said and let Black Americans decide for themselves if that's a good enough pitch. They may have said no. I thought it was interesting, but the lying is something that I think is outrageous. It's gotten out of control.
I think it's worse now. I think it's worse now because not only do you have people who will just create the headlines based off what they feel you said as opposed to what you said. You have people that will just straight up manipulate your audio, manipulate your video, just to push a narrative.
One of the wildest things, the craziest things that people say about me all the time, and it drives me crazy because it's literally made up. They're like, Candace said racism doesn't exist.
I don't know how the fuck he has so many.
If you go find that headline
of
Candace said racism doesn't exist, they didn't put it in quotation marks because I never said it. They were like, Candace said racism doesn't exist because she's quote unquote never been a slave. The words never been a slave came out of my mouth, but I never said racism doesn't exist. And it was in the context of an entire speech. The media knew that Black people were not going to go watch the speech or try to find the original speech. They were just going to read the headline and react and be like, oh my God, Candace Owens said racism doesn't exist. How could she say this? She's a hypocrite. She's a liar. This happened to her in her childhood.
Yeah, you sued your high school for racism.
Yeah, it's actually not that's not what happened. I didn't sue my high school for racism. But
for not protecting you during that time, I said, right? They said for not protecting you. They said
just did deal what the media does.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, I get it because it's something that I've talked about at length. But essentially, I had the situation happen to me in high school where somebody that I was actually best friends with left me horrific voicemails. They were racist voicemails. There's no other way to slice it.
They called you a nigga because you didn't want to date him?
No, he actually, I think he was gay, to be honest. It was nothing about dating. I think this was kind of a circumstance of I had my first beer. I'll be honest, I got a boyfriend and I just stopped hanging out with my friends. Very typical high school stupid stuff. And this gay guy that I was friends with was outraged by it. And one night he was out drinking with kids that were way younger than him that I had never met, and they left me horrific voicemails. I mean, like bringing in like Rosa Parks. There was tons of threats. They were just like it was. Yeah, like it was. There was no way to slice it, but it was. They were extremely racist, and it was terrifying too, because I didn't know who the phone calls were coming from. Long story short, one of the kids in the car happened to be the governor of Connecticut's son, so it became this sort of overnight political story. And while it was going on, and there were like news cameras in front of the school, I left
smack
school
that
and just
10.
homeschooled
Yes.
for, I think it was about 6 to 8 weeks.
All right,
and
cool,
basically we got reimbursed for the time that I was homeschooling. Is what happened. But yeah,
I'm just
so
gonna
when
let
people
this
retell that story now. It's like she sued
beat
her school
him
for racism,
down.
and the NAACP helped her, and I'm like, no, the
Considering that
NAACP
he
did not
hasn't.
help me. They used my face and my name to fundraise for the NAACP, which is actually the reason why I don't like the NAACP. It's like a very valid reason, because I was a little girl, you know. I was 16, 17 years old, and it was a really hard situation to go through as a child. You know, I'm not like I am now, 34 years old and married with that support system. It was kind of fame you don't want, you know. But I'm actually very grateful that it happened to me, because it allowed me to really consider what the media was. Even though I was still a liberal, I knew what the media was. Like, I knew the media was all about selling a headline. I knew then I got an early lesson in the NAACP. I think organizations that never want racism to go away, because how are they going to fundraise? Like, if you're a CEO of the NAACP and you're earning X amount of dollars, you got to keep the racism narrative going on, or you're going to work yourself out of business. So the stuff that I talk about is always based on my experiences, you know? And yeah, so it's just crazy to see how it gets manipulated in the press.
Now, you said something earlier. You said that you wanted to listen to what Trump had to say. You said in 2016 you still didn't vote for him. So looking at the country now, right? Of course, there's Trump, there's Biden. Who do you think is better for our community? And why?
Obviously. Well, first and foremost, just for
I mean,
everybody, you should have a president that's, you know, not mentally deteriorating like Biden is. I mean, he's in full mental deterioration. It's crazy to pretend anything
All
else
right,
that's
let's
happening
see
right
if
now.
that-
It's scary first and foremost because we have real enemies out there, and you have a person that can't lead. You know, he can't remember what he ate for breakfast. He's saying things. I mean, the amount of times that he keeps talking about his dead son as if he's alive, it's very alarming.
Smack that
and I don't say that with
16.
any
Yes.
ill will in my heart either, because he's showing signs of when my grandfather, who passed a
There
couple
we
of years
go.
ago, started, you know, his mind started diminishing, and you start to see those early signs of dementia. The way he walks, his gait, the way that he's falling, that this is crazy. Everyone should be outraged, whether you're on the left or the right. But in terms of the better candidate for Black Americans, I asked people the question, how were you living under Trump, the person that they told you was going to put us back into chains, we were all going to be slaves again? How was the economy under Trump, and how are you doing today? And every time you ask that question, everyone knows that they were living better under Trump, because he was deregulating the environment, and people were just living better under Trump. And he is, in my opinion, a better president, because at least he's telling you the truth, and he's telling you what he actually thinks. You know, one of the things that I hated the most about him when he first came on the escalator, I was like, oh, he's way too brash. You know, Obama sounds way more polite. But I asked the question, do you want to be
Dumb
politely
fuck.
lied to, or have somebody that's at least telling you what they think about you in no uncertain terms? So, you know, I like Trump for a ton of reasons, and for me, it was always about the economic argument, and I knew that he was going to be a better candidate for Black Americans because of that. Especially, you know, build the wall sounded so wild, right? Back in 2016, it sounded wild. It sounded xenophobic, and I was saying, if these illegals get into the inner city communities, the first people that are going to be harmed are going to be Black Americans.
People actually were mad at you, right? When you got into the conversation with T.I. at the Revolt Music Conference, right? And you were saying that, and people didn't understand it, but it seems like people are understanding what you were trying to say back then.
Yeah, and I am so happy to have those moments, because, like, I think T.I. is a trash person. You know, I'll say that 1,000 times over, because first and foremost, I
Boom!
had spoken to T.I. prior to that event. Like, T.I. was
Smacked
the
him.
only person on stage that I actually knew, and for the same reasons that I met you. Kanye had put us in touch. We had talked, and I know that T.I. thinks more conservatively. So he was literally putting on a show. And it just makes me wonder, especially with all the stuff that, like, came out in the Diddy lawsuit, like, who's controlling T.I.? Because that was wild. He was literally putting on a show like he didn't know me on stage, like he was surprised I was saying the stuff. He was way more level-headed and rational when we were on the phone. And I still look back on the moment, I'm like, what was he doing? It was like a circus act up there. And he was doing something that I thought was harmful, because we were actually having a great discussion, and yet he created a little moment, and that was all the
right,
media ran with.
let's see.
Despite the fact we were on that stage for hours, they ran with that moment, and I was really upset about it. But you're right. I was talking a lot about illegal immigration and saying this is something that we need to pay attention to, because eventually the black vote's not going to matter. Something that they worked so hard for is not going to matter. They get enough illegals in. What are we at? 10 million under Biden. and they're doing it intentionally. Like, it's going to be the same thing that they did to Black Americans in the 60s.
Is he gonna
what
hit
Lyndon Baines
that?
Johnson did when he established welfareism and the Great Society Act. They want to get these people in, offer them handouts, and turn them into economic slaves that will continue to vote for Democrats because they're getting free handouts. And it's incredibly racist, first and foremost, but because Black Americans are still, a lot of Black Americans, I should say, are still living under this deception that Lyndon Baines Johnson was a good president, even though he was an avowed racist. I mean, he hated Black people. I mean, one of the, so many times, I mean, hard R referring to us as the N-word. I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And this man is being hailed as a hero because he had to sign the Civil Rights Act, essentially with a figurative gun to his head because the country was on fire. You know, JFK had just died, and there were riots in the streets protesting because of racism.
I think
and
I
he
kill
did not want to sign it, but he
Purple.
did. And with the other hand, he signed the Great Society Act
And
and
then go in and
incentivized
just
welfareism and
destroy-
programs to incentivize not marrying the Black men. You know, to think that we had government agents knocking on the door, going into the homes of Black women and being like, there better not be a man that lives here. We're just here to check to make sure. If you want this check, Dad can't be home. Every other ill that Black America is facing today is because we've removed fathers from the home. So I am like a big, I use my platform to talk about men a lot and the need for male leadership, everything that is so harmful, this, Me Too, false feminism, all of this crap.
Okay.
It's anti-man, and it's anti-man for a reason, because a society cannot survive without strong men. A household cannot survive without strong men. We need strong men to lead homes. And so the fracturing of the Black family, I think, was the test. Like we were the mice in the experiment. Like, let's see how that goes. And now they're kind of doing that writ large. And I hate feminism so much. I can't even tell you, because what it's about is it's just an attack on men.
Oh, you just said a lot, Ken. Let's talk about some of these things. Now, you said a lot. Now with the politicians, right? Whether it's Lyndon B. Johnson, Trump, Biden, I think people are able to ignore a lot of their BS as long as they can get something.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like. So that's why I don't even like to talk about the person. I like to talk about the policy. So what is the difference between traditional conservatives and MAGA?
Well, I would say between the traditional conservatives and MAGA.
Yeah, like before what the Conservative Party was before MAGA and what it is now.
Yeah, so I think what you're describing is that there was this fracture in the conservative movement because people realized that when he was referring to the swamp, what he meant was it didn't actually matter if you were on the left or the right. They were all working together in D.C. and selling out all of America. I mean, there is no reason why you go to D.C. and become a multimillionaire. You're supposed to be there to serve the American people. You're there taking our tax dollars. So what was happening was these lobbying interests, like, Big Pharma goes down and they lobby and they'll offer money to a candidate to go push a drug, like the COVID vaccine. Or they'll lobby for war. That's like, biggest lobby, of course, military-industrial complex. So we're all suffering. You're going to work because these lobbyists are getting their incentives done by buying out these politicians. And so Trump kind of hit the scene as somebody who wasn't bought and paid for because he didn't need their money. He wasn't like a random congressman going to D.C. with no money. And he just started talking about the swamp. Like, it's not even Republican or Democrat. And I want people to wake up to that, because I'm not here like ride or die for Republicans. They all sell us out. Like, the stuff that they did during COVID is criminal. It's criminal. And
Who was found on that?
I mean, the free handouts. First off, trillions of dollars. You're signing these omnibus bills. If you read into it, where that money is going, it's insane. It's literally going, to museums, boards of museums. They're quite literally money laundering is what's happening when they sign these bills. But they keep it so that the information level is so low for Americans that it's like, oh, COVID's so bad, like, we're going to give you a check that's like, $300. This basically describes welfareism, right? Like, despite the fact that there's been trillions of dollars since the establishment of welfare, Black Americans are poorer today than we were before it. People don't know this, but during the time of Jim Crow, before welfare was established in the 1950s, Black Americans were actually outpacing white Americans in this country in terms of economic growth. And the reason for that was because our families were together. We had good values. The government only wants to give you the bare minimum. But where's the rest of the money? Where is it going? They sign these bills making you think that this money is going to you. It's not. They are stealing from the American people. And it's, you look at your congressman, whoever it is that you guys sent down to D.C., and you realize that they're all just puppets. I feel like we're watching a performance, And who can say the most outrageous thing? The Republicans don't want to sign this because they want, slavery, and they want you back in change. The Democrats don't want to sign this because they want grandma to die. Whatever it is, you're watching. To me, it's a play.
That's why I don't think. That's why I think if you're Black, you shouldn't be beholden to any political party. Democrat or Republican?
Right. I mean, I think that
no
any
one.
concept of saying
What
that
do you
I
mean?
am a Republican
If you're
forever, or
black,
Democrat forever
it's like,
is a nonsense.
why do you have to make
you
that
should
up?
always look at the candidates that are running, and any person that is running saying that they want to grow government is your enemy.
Why do you think people give you a lot of backlash for questioning people and having questions? I see it all the time with Charlemagne. If we question something that Kamala Harris did, or question something that Joe Biden did, or question somebody that's Democrat did, why do you think our people have so much backlash when you ask so many questions?
There we go.
Because I think that they don't realize that they've been manipulated
Boom.
against their own interests. And a lot of it is, you know, when you start telling the truth, you become a problem to the establishment, right? So if you're the military-industrial complex and you want people to just kind of sleepwalk into another war, and I'm sitting here telling you that, Pentagon
that
just can't
sucks.
keep finding the trillions of dollars that they send overseas. They've got this budget, and they're sending all this money to Ukraine, and then they say, oh, we don't know where all the money went. It's being laundered,
When
and it's
does
being
the
sent back
new
to a very
season
small group
start?
of powerful people. And so when you have someone like me who's cutting through all of the emotional arguments, you have to turn that person
Risk
into persona non
new
grata,
season.
right? And what better way to do it than to have their own community attacking them and saying that they're, you know, pro-white or anti-black. I mean, it's a nonsense things that they say about me. If you listen to what I'm actually saying, I'm sitting here providing a blueprint for Black Americans to get ahead, because it's time, okay? It's time. We've been doing this for a very long time in this country. Black America, wake up, okay? They don't like you. They don't like us, okay? There's
So you're not anti-black.
They is
America
government.
has
They is
yes.
government.
America.
Yeah, like the government, the American government. Why would you think the American government wants to help you? Well, at what point in history has that proven to be right? And I'll challenge that, and I'll make it wider to all Americans. When has it ever been the circumstance that you felt that the government really just was out for your own best interests? Think of them as a corporation. They want to grow themselves. They want new departments, bigger departments, larger budgets, like any other corporation would want. And they never want to leave DC because we don't have term limits, which we should have, right? If we had term limits and said you can only serve for 4 years, well, then guess what they would be doing for those 4 years? Trying to shrink government, because they'd have to come back out and be us, right? When you look at the way that your tax dollars are being spent, you should be outraged. You should be angry, but stop thinking that the enemy is, you know, they constantly have us arguing against each other, women versus men, black
Whoa,
versus
what is
white,
this?
you know. It's a
Map.
nonsense.
I've never
The
seen
reason why
that
they
map.
want us constantly warring is because it distracts from all of us coming together and taking a look at who the real criminals are. And the real criminals are this small group, this small cadre of powerful people that I think we're virtually all still on a plantation. They just made it look nice. You know, you got a nice chair. We got nice chairs here. But
for
I
the
think
baby
we're all
shower.
still on a plantation.
Shut up. It's for the baby shower. So is this the reason why I haven't really heard you pushing people to vote for any particular candidate this go around?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very clear about the fact I let everything play out, but I absolutely love Vivek Ramaswamy. Obviously, he's not running anymore, but his ideas and his laser sharp focus on what the actual issues were, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I'm obviously
liked
voting for
Vivek,
Trump.
too.
You know, we were all doing better under Trump. It's that simple. I don't care what else they have to say, the libels, the smears. I get it. You do it to me. So I just don't even pay attention. I actually find it to be quite boring now, you know?
What economically, what were the reasons? Because, you know, you said that, you didn't like that Republicans were giving out money during 2020.
Both. They were just giving out money during COVID. It was crazy.
But that's what a lot of people loved. They loved the stimulus checks. They loved the PPP. So when you say...
Yeah, stupid people. It wasn't like Republicans were giving out money. It was that it was both. It wasn't just like Republicans were.
No, nothing fun. All Deos.
Wake that ass up.
In the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Wait, what? What is it?
Kanye's recent anti-Christian stance doesn't surprise
Wait, he has an anti-Christian
me in
stance.
the least, and in this video we're going to explore why. If you've been keeping up with Kanye's journey at all, you know that in 2019 he put out an album called Jesus is King and made very bold, proclamations of his newfound faith in Jesus. This was then subsequently followed up by a presidential run, and then in 2021, releasing Donda, which was kind of a cross between
Donda.
his older music and his Jesus is King era, in that it still featured a lot of semi-explicit themes, yet had all the profanity removed. But all that went out the window on his latest release,
Vultures sucks.
where he made some rather blasphemous statements about being the new Jesus Christ, and in his latest interview with Big Boy.
I
So
haven't
in this
watched
video,
this.
we're going to look at the claims
Maybe
he
we
made
watched
on
that
Big Boy,
video.
which many of you guys have probably
Maybe we watched that interview. Kanye, Big Boy. I assume this is it.
already heard of, and why this didn't shock me in the least. Mainly because Ye DM'd me several weeks ago, foreshadowing some of the same statements he made, and would subsequently
Wait, he DM'd him? They know each
Our
other?
interactions is pretty interesting, to say the least. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. If you're new here or if you're not new here, please make sure you're subscribed, as a huge percentage of the people who watch this channel, unfortunately, are not. All right, let's get into this video.
It is, but I have my issues with Jesus. There's a lot of stuff I went through that I prayed and I didn't see Jesus show up. So I had to put my experience in this world, my experience with my children, my experience with other people, my experience with my account, my experience with my brand, and my experience with the level of music that I was dealing with in my own hands. You know how many threats we've been dealt with? And I didn't pray my way through them threats either. I had to get up and do it myself. I had so much to do, I ain't had time to pray. So that's where what my issue is, and look where I'm at today.
So where he's at today, another #1 album, #1 record, first time in a long time. None of this was shocking to me. Why was it shocking with me? Because Ye DM'd me and basically said the same thing a couple weeks ago regarding just praying, and that's his issue with Christians. What I think he's talking about, and what I think triggered this, and this is not me trying to cape for Kanye, because I think he's wrong, absolutely wrong, and I'll explain why. I think what happened was there was a moment in time during the Donda rollout, the first Donda rollout, where he believed that he was going to get back with Kim. He did this whole show, and I believe it was in Chicago. He had Kim walk down the aisle again in a dress. He was trying to be with his kids more, and then the sequence of his kids being taken from him, not being able to go to different birthday parties. It was just a complete message raising. And I think what was happening was that he wanted his relationship restored. Unfortunately, I don't know if he was in the place to work through and towards what would have required for his relationship to be restored, right? Not to mention that he's married to Kim, and I don't know Kim like that. I've seen Kim in person one time. I've seen Ye in person a handful of times. I don't know them like that. But that sort of process, if you guys have seen the Genius documentary, perhaps isn't what he was willing or capable of doing. So I think that the foundational breakdown is, I don't think Kanye was praying for more money or more clout or whatever. I think he was in a place where he was genuinely hoping and praying that his marriage would be turned around without perhaps taking an inventory of what would that take. And then that not happening is what sent him down the spiral of all the stuff that happened after that. The I love Hitler comments, all the comments about you know who, and so on and so forth.
Who's you know who? Is he talking about the Jews?
And unfortunately, some of that stuff, he had to deal with the consequences of that.
Who's you
right?
know
He
who?
had to deal with the consequences. Him coming full circle to this nonsense about him being God is not surprising, because he's been on that. He said that on the Yeezus album, right? I am a God, little God theology, and unfortunately, some of this stuff is prevalent in certain charismatic circles, right? With the Kenneth Copelands and the foolishness there. So this isn't surprising to me, right? And I'll play you guys some more of this conversation, and I'll give you guys my thoughts in terms of what I said to him about this.
You know, it's another thing I don't like in Christianity, the fear of God. Because you place one fear, you get another fear, you get another fear. What do you have at that point? You're easily controllable. You're easily sellable. You're easily contracted.
That's not it at all. If you fear God, you end up fearing nothing else. So then you aren't easily sellable. You
Because
aren't
you have this fear
any of
on
that
you.
shit.
Like, everybody gonna die eventually, but I'm gonna live my entire life with zero fear. Ain't nobody finna tell me, call me, tell nobody around me, play with me, play with nobody around me. Every label, every contract, any type of phone calls, we number one.
The ironic part about that second
This
statement,
is sad.
right, is
This
that
is
he
too
goes on
bad.
to say that I have no fear, yet I wouldn't jump in front of a train. I don't think he understood that in making that, but I wouldn't jump in front of a train, is a self-defeating premise. Like, he contradicts the premise of I don't want to fear God with I wouldn't jump in front of a train. That's what the fear of God is. Like, the fear of God is not a fear of God like you fear a scary movie. The fear of God is not fear God like you fear walking in a haunted mansion and there's clowns that jump out and scare you, right? That's not what the fear of God is. The fear of God is a reverence and a respect.
Respect.
In the
Yeah,
same
it's
way we
it's
fear
like the way
gravity.
you fear
In the
your.
same way you
It's like the way that you fear your father, almost. Like a healthy way of fearing your father, I guess, where you respect your father. Okay. What does green do here? I thought that you wanted South America. I don't want...
you fear your father. Those of us that
You
have
wanted me
fathers,
to
I
go
didn't have a
out
father,
this
but
way,
fear
you
your
dumb
father.
fuck?
Why?
No.
Not because your father's slapping you up and beating you up, but because your father is capable if he has to, but he doesn't because he's a good father, right? My son play fights with me. He wants to test the lines. He wants to test the limits of where we are, right? Where he is. He's 9. He's always trying to run up on me and punch me, and then we wrestle, right? It's interesting that the Jacob wrestled with God, right? So it's a fear in terms of a respect and a reverence. It's not a fear of like, oh, I'm scared of God, like it's a scary movie.
So I'll be surprised that I'm still alive every day.
How did you not so-called disappear? Like, because that's a hell of a fight.
Because, because I'm God. And anyone who disagree, I'm the God of me. And you can't tell me.
Yeah, that's
I can't
cringe.
tell y'all. I could tell y'all. It's y'all job to listen.
That's cringe, bro. Cringe as fuck. The fuck you doing? I don't understand this motherfucker.
I'm the God of me.
Big
Cringe.
wiggle wah wah wah. Okay, so foundationally, I think Kanye.
Who is it?
Yeah, when people
It's
say
the
that they're their own
awkward-
god, it's like, damn, your god sucks, bro. If you're your own god, your god really sucks.
Is confused on what it means to fear God. So that's like, you just don't understand what that means. Fear God the way we fear gravity. Fear God the way you're not going to jump out the window when you are 2 stories above, right, on your 2nd floor. That's what fear God means. You fear God the way you fear gravity. Ironically enough, he says, fear God, but I'm not going to jump in front of a train. But that's the type of fear we're talking about. 2, and this is some of what I shared with him privately, is there's a misunderstanding of prayer, the faith without works aspect, and that God's not a genie that just gives you whatever you want to. God's not a genie that just is there to give you your wishes.
Yeah.
That sometimes some prayers aren't answered because God has a greater purpose in the sacrifice. And we don't have to look any further, and I'm not paralleling this to Kanye, but we don't have to look any further than Jesus. What am I talking about? Well, when Jesus was in a garden, what did he pray? What did Jesus pray? Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. Now, Jesus was actually God. Jesus was actually a part of the Godhead. He was God incarnate. He was the incarnation, the image of the Logos becoming flesh.
There we go.
And Jesus prays, let this cup pass from me if it is your will. Did Jesus not know that from eternity past that they had this masterful plan of redeeming humanity back to a proper standing with God? You think Jesus didn't know that? Of course Jesus knew that. Yet in his humanity, I think he prayed something that a lot of us in our natural state would pray. And that prayer was not answered. But that prayer is why we're reconciled to God now. That prayer not being answered is the reason why we're in a proper standing with God now through the blood of Jesus. So, Kanye is not God, but the true God Almighty of the flesh,
Red sucks.
King of Kings, Lord of Lords, actually had a prayer not answered, and it was for our benefit. Me and Ye DM, and he reads my DMs. He seldom replies. He's replied a couple times, but it says read. And he messaged everything he said publicly. He messaged me privately a while ago. And I'm not saying we're buds, and I'm not saying it like that. But what I'm saying is, so none of this surprised me. But two, what I'm hoping to, maybe he'll see this video. What I'm hoping to articulate is that some prayers aren't answered because sometimes we're called to go to the cross and die to different parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that need to that get put to death so that something better can rise from the ashes. Some prayers in my life and in your life may not be answered, perhaps because there are things that are bigger in the grand scheme of things that we don't understand. With the resurrection, 3 days later, Jesus was out of the tomb. The disciples were celebrating. He was making them breakfast. He was appearing to people. But there are other times where some prayers aren't answered, and we don't know why. We don't know why certain prayers aren't answered. But that doesn't mean that God is not good. That doesn't mean
sometimes you're not ready for those prayers to be answered yet.
Water. That means that we humbly submit and we say, man, I don't know why that healing didn't happen. I don't know why that breakthrough didn't happen. I don't know why these things didn't happen. And this is for I know a lot of you guys have prayed for family members to get healed, right? I've had two close friends to me. At one point when I was 19, one of my best friends, his name is Big Mike, 20 years old, got pneumonia and a month later died. Tragically. We all prayed and believed he was going to get healed. He didn't get healed. He died of pneumonia. A lot of people beat pneumonia. He died. A little over a year ago, T. Ross the Giant, one of my really good friends, he lived in the previous studio. So we just moved into this place a year ago. Before that, T. Ross lived in a studio at the previous studio. Him and Zach were roommates when Zach still lived at the studio. And I was there when he got the news. And he beat it. And we all rejoiced and we all prayed. And then he came back. Thanksgiving of 2022, he died. That prayer was not answered. I don't know why. I don't know why that prayer wasn't answered. And I remember I went to our text messages and he sent me a voice note that I didn't save. And it was the very last voice note he sent me when I had landed in Israel. Because I voice messaged him out because I was wanting to come see him and sent me that voice note. I don't remember what he said. I was just getting off the plane. I didn't save it. I wish I would have saved it. And subsequently, after that, he went home on hospice and he died. So sometimes God doesn't answer our prayers. This is the reality of the Christian walk. If Ye is not capable of understanding sometimes God doesn't answer your prayers, good prayers. Good prayers. I think Ye desiring to have his family restored. I think Ye desiring reconciliation. I think praying for wanting to be closer in his kids' lives or wanting to be in the same house. Those are good prayers. Sometimes those prayers don't get answered. I don't know why. But perhaps this is a lesson
Why are
he
you
needs to learn. He
moving
needs
so
to walk
much?
through this.
Don't be doing that.
I think all of this, I am a God.
Oh, he's trying to get the red kill
my
right
own
now.
God. Even in the way he's answering this, I think there's a glimmer, in my opinion, this is my opinion, based on my very limited interaction with him. I think there's a glimmer of hope there. The fact that I send this man Bible verses almost every single day, and it says read under all the DMs, and he hasn't blocked me, and he hasn't cussed me out again yet. I'm hopeful that at some point he will repent and come back to Jesus. I am praying for that. I am hopeful for that. But the stuff we go through is hard. Life is hard, man. And this isn't to make excuses. What Ye say was out of pocket.
No.
This is crazy. Don't be calling yourself God. Don't be saying this. You flame with fire. I don't understand why you got to fear God. Because he's so against being controlled, not understanding that the whole point of discipleship is to relinquish control. It's not just all feel-good music and upbeat vibes and feeling morally superior. That a big portion of being a Christian is to surrender control and to submit to God, to submit to God's ways. And so anyway, those are my thoughts on it. I'm still praying for him. By the grace of God, for whatever reason, I've been able to send him Bible verses almost every day. Not just me, my pastor. Hey, you guys got anything you want to send to Ye, my therapist? We got anything you want to say? Jonathan Peugeot has sent verses that he wants me to send him. Neil sent verses he wants me to send him. And so there's a lot of people praying for him and sending him verses. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe something in one of those verses sparks that, and he repents. I think it's going to be a longer process than that, unfortunately. And I think he's wilding out. And I think these are some of these basic things that unfortunately he just doesn't understand, and I hope he does, and I hope he repents, because there's a lot of people that he has influence over. We shouldn't be too celebratory when celebrities come to faith, and we shouldn't be too shocked when they don't reflect the faith, right? That's the lesson, I think, for all of us. I think we could be inspired and be like, oh, that's dope, awesome, but these folks, the amount of attention and the amount of baggage they have and all the issues they're going through, their lives are, there's going to be more things there. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm bummed with the Ye thing, but like I'm not losing sleep over it. Like God is still God. God is still sovereign. God is still in control. And God sometimes will, when a believer, if Ye was truly saved, truly born again, which from my seeing him from the Watch the Throne to the Jesus to Jesus' King era, and I went to several of those. I don't know. I can't speak to it, but I think that one of the most dangerous places to be if you're a Christian is in this sort of disobedience. If you actually place your faith in Jesus and then you start behaving this way, and that belief and that profession was genuine, and then you're behaving this way, that is a scary place to be. That is a scary, scary, scary place to be. Like God will deal with you. So the reality is that Jesus said, in this life, there will be trouble, and not all of our prayers will be answered the way we want them to be. And when it goes back to this idea of Christians just praying and not doing anything, which is some of Kanye's frustration, I think he misses a couple of key ideas. One being,
I'm gonna go grab some.
James, the brother of Jesus, says that faith without works is dead. And the second, echoing that statement by James, St. Augustine said, pray like it all depends on God. Work like it all depends on you. So despite Kanye's apprehension towards Christians just praying or him not needing to pray and having to work, I think it is impossible for the Christian, the true follower of Jesus, to detangle our faith and our salvation, which is by grace, and the response that we then have because we're saved, to live according to God's ways and put in the work on this side of eternity. And this is all anchored on the reality that if you've placed your faith in Jesus, you have been raised from death to life, like Jesus. That everything about the Christian journey is symbolic, from baptism to us walking out our faith. And that is exactly what John 5:24 says, in that we've been crossed over from death to life. And we see this explored in John 5:24 when Jesus said that those of us who placed our faith in him have crossed over from death to life. And that is the latest theme of our newest collection that's coming out next week. So be on the lookout for the Death to Life collection, available only Monday through Sunday next week. Go to blessgod.shop, sign up on the email list so you don't miss the drop. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.
Why so serious?
Side, I hear this all the time. It's infighting. Get given jobs and becomes anti-Semitic when it is used for the purpose of expressing anti-Semitism. It's like asking, how does a shovel become a murder weapon when it is used to murder someone? How can an African American become useful to society? And I'm just kidding, he didn't go that far. But he's like, this isn't hard. A shovel is not innately a murder weapon. Saying Christ is king is not innately anti-Semitic. It's all about how a thing is used. Saying eat some cornbread, this is so based actually, eat some cornbread is not racist if I say it to my 3-year-old son when she is refusing her dinner. But if I start saying it as a response to X post by black commentators I don't like, which by the way, you should start using this. He's saying anytime they tell you don't do something, do it. It has taken on a meaning beyond what is innate. In other words, it is connotatively racist, not denotatively racist. So to Christ is king may be anti-Semitic in connotation, while not in denotation. Blah, 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 blah. I'd like to say this.
Shut up!
As my guess. Shout out to the Christian community in the right-wing media for spending Palm Sunday and Easter week, doing what Christians apparently seem to do best in the media apparatus, which is fight anti-Semitism and police other Christians to never ruffle feathers and make sure that you're all just pot smoking. Jesus is love, man. Not the Jesus sword dipped in blood coming back on a white horse, turning over tables inside of the temple, calling the other nations, dogs and vermin, or coming to genocide entire nations. Forget about all that, you youthful slave. We got a show for you. And this brings up a giant discussion because I think we are winning. Someone else who's winning, who's gone viral recently, been on the show, one of my favorite people, actually, good friends, stand-up comic, Leonarda. Holy hell, welcome to the show.
I don't know
How are
who
you doing?
Leonarda is.
Thank you. I'm doing great. I've been banned all over, and every time I get banned, dude, it kind of makes me feel good. I'm like, wow, you guys are that afraid of me? Go for it, So this crisis king bullshit that these people are saying is anti-Semitic. It's like pretty soon believing in Jesus is going to be anti-Semitic, and the Christians are going to be like, well, when we say Jesus, we really mean, the same God that the Jews are worshiping.
Well, it actually is illegal in 35 states. 35 states in anti-BDS laws passed policy directly limiting how Christians can talk about the gospel. So literally denoting things like the Jews killed Jesus, things like that, are actually illegal, not just in Republican states, but also in Democrat states as well. Universally, this definition of anti-Semitism has been adopted and codified into law. This is common knowledge. People know this. But it's most vital to realize that it actually is a law in over half the states in America that you cannot accurately read the Bible because that could offend some people. How much do you care about offending people? Because I don't know. I think you're really into that, right? You like that kind of stuff?
I don't care because I'm so tired of it. I lived my life up until a few years ago just watching what I said and even watching what I thought because I didn't want to think, commit a thought crime, right? Think things that you weren't supposed to think things that they told you were bad. And the only thing I'm interested is in the truth. And if the truth happens to be racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, then so fucking be it. Because I'm tired of the bullshit, and I think everybody else is too.
Yeah, and we're going to give a little recap on where this all started. Because, guys, if you're wondering,
and it seems to be that the truth is all those
or
things.
I'm just kind of religious, or even you are a Christian. The reason why this is important is because this is about the destiny of our country. And the right wing is not weak because we are infighting. I want to repeat this. We are not weak because we are infighting. We are weak because gatekeepers in media have prevented us from having the discussions that would actually strengthen us. If the right wing actually got together, like some people have done in the past, found out who was really behind everything, who's really screwing up the mortgage rates, who's really destroying the currency, who's creating a culture where women have to work just to stay afloat so they can't raise their kids. If we have that discussion, they will silence you just like the Democrats will. And so they get you fighting about pronouns and bathrooms and things that really don't advance your society, your people, your faith. And instead, if you really wanted to know who's against Christians, who hates Christ, let's talk about the people today that are trying to silence the discussion on Christianity. And no, this is not a hateful episode. And no, we're not talking that all people of any group are objectively evil, except for women. No, I'm just kidding. But it's where we're going to go. So we're going to talk about this. Before we jump into that, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor for today. And I got to tell you something really crazy. The dollar is in free fall collapse. It literally is losing its value every day, and you can't leave your money in the bank. If you have more than $5,000 saved up, and some of you guys do, listen to what I have to say. American Hartford Gold has a way that you can invest your retirement, your savings, your 401k, transfer it out of volatile stock bonds or different type of yield accounts that aren't returning enough profit into actual hard silver and gold. If you've been looking a way to secure your long-term investments or to take money that you have and to transmute it literally into something that has stood the test of time, you've got to call my friends at American Hartford Gold at 855-699-8392. What they're going to do for you, they have hundreds of 5-star ratings with the Better Business Bureau. They've helped and literally transferred billions of dollars in wealth between hands and helped to secure it into these ways that stand the test of time. If you're against these weird accounts that are run by these banks that manipulate NSIVE to 65532. Again, that's offensive to 65532. All right, Leonarda, although we talked about in the last show, I have a lot to say, and you've got a lot to say. And I'm not going to fall into their traps. This is why I think that the people don't want to talk about this stuff. They don't want to talk about it in the past because it's a trap. If you talk about this topic then they want to say that you are a person of hate. Lucky for them, you and I are already people of hate. We're open about it and we're proud. So there's so you can't trap us. Am I wrong? I'm joking.
Well, the thing is, you're on the right track, because if you just own the words, it's like a
Yeah,
shield.
I am
You know, like
anti-Semitic.
what they're trying to
your
do
point?
is make you crumble under these words that used to have all this power. Like, the worst thing you could have been called in the 2000s as a white person is a racist, and now we're just like, okay, and what? Moving on.
So what, dog?
It doesn't. Will that negate my point of view? No, I'm not accepting that. Is it going to negate my willingness to speak up? No, I'm not accepting that. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not really hateful. Like, I have friends from all different kinds of ethnic groups and backgrounds, and I love them for who they are. You know, I don't categorize them like, oh, you belong to this group, so you're out of here. But I am not going to accept a narrative that tells me that I should be ashamed of myself because I'm white, that I should embrace the erasure of white culture and white people around the world, and that somehow this is good for us or better, or that there is no difference between a European and somebody who's from sub-Saharan West Africa. I'm sorry, but there are differences, and having a child with another European does not produce the exact same results as having a child with somebody else from a different culture. You are creating, it doesn't mean it's bad. You know, if somebody wants to have that, go for it. But if everybody did it, we would not have white people. And the fact of the matter is, what's so ironic, everything is so upside down.
This lady's
is that they
based.
push this thing where they're like, because we want to have diversity, we want to have diversity, we want to have diversity. But if you look at what happens when everybody breeds with everybody,
then
you
there's
actually
no
get
diversity.
less diversity, because everybody just becomes stone
One
shade of
homogenized
brown,
group.
and there really isn't any diversity.
Well, by the way, I had that conversation with someone last night. They were like, "Oh, you're not for diversity?" I said, "Yeah." Do you know the kind of they try to use this argument with me? Do you know genetic diversity is important and it's really good for health? And I go, first of all, stop psyoping me with your midwit science. Second of all, let's also talk about what that means. It's called genetic deviation or genetic variation. It's about separation of frequency of alleles. This is having some sort of a genetic backup. Let's just call it like having a rifle and a handgun, right? The fact is, sometimes genetic diversity is actually negative. Sometimes certain combinations of genes can literally wipe out blue eyes from a genetic pool. But also on top of that, genetic diversity doesn't necessarily mean a black person marrying a white person. In fact, it doesn't mean that. What it means is you don't want to all descend from the same 350 people in one region. It means that, you know, like a Swede marrying an English person that's massive genetic diversification. But also, even just Brits marrying people outside of their family 2 steps is the genetic variation, which is why, sorry British people, English people in particular, you look kind of like you're retarded. But that's also because you guys did too much intermarrying. But that doesn't mean that everyone did that. Although some of you might think your cousins are hot. Fine Christ. I want to look at this clip. I want to look at this clip with you on what sort of started this, because I want to clarify 2 things. I have had Andrew Klavan on my show. I follow him on Twitter. He follows me. I have actually had him on the show twice, I think. I've done shows with his son, Spencer Klavan. I find them to both be incredibly excellent individuals at a personal level. I've been over at Andrew Klavan's house, actually, in Hollywood Hills before I moved to Tennessee. I know these people well enough, right? I would say this puts the ground of like, I'm not ad hominem, man. I don't want to attack these people. I don't agree with people who say that Andrew Klavan is a bad person, or Spencer Klavan, you know, it's just like, oh, you're a gay Jew. I don't know why people are offended by being called what they are, but that's not my attack point. I don't work like that. I don't care if people do that.
I want to know what Andrew Klavan
said. My point is I just want to clarify.
Did Andrew Klavan really saying Christ is King is anti-Semitic? Because he's a Jew, right? Have he said that?
If there's any reason why I would even point something out that a friend, of all things, someone that I know that I'm friendly with, if I would take the time to point out an inconsistency, it would probably be only two reasons. If it directly endangered somebody I loved, or it blasphemed God. Okay? I won't put my friends on blast, or even associates, or anyone on blast, ever. Because I find it to be inappropriate and gossipy and bitchy like women do and gays and stuff. I don't do that. So when I play this clip, it's because it dumbfounded me And I respect him, and that's what makes it all the more powerful. Like, you know what I'm saying, Leonardo? Because I respect him, and I think he's wise and intelligent, and I don't think he's stupid. So when I play something like this, it's not like, let's listen to some black chick from the Bronx say something dumb about the Jews or Jesus. Like, oh, well, she's an idiot. This is a smart guy, well-educated, well-read, well-produced, saying something so it has weight to it. Let's watch this. We watched on the last show, but this is where the argument comes in. It's crazy to me that we're even playing this, but listen.
You know, when I did this, by the way, the priest who baptized me said, you know, Christians won't accept you. You'll still be a Jew. And I said, well, I am. That's my race. I'm a Jew. I'm proud of my race. It's a great race. It's done many, many great things, including write the Bible. And, you know, I am a Jew. But that hasn't happened at all. Christians have welcomed me with open arms, except this Christ the King anti-Semitic crowd. Christ is the King, and one day every knee will bow and recognize it, because he's not just my king, he's king of the universe. But when you use that phrase to mean that God has abandoned his chosen people, the Jews, through whom he came into this world incarnate, and that he's broken his promises, his covenant with the Jews, you are quoting scripture like Satan does in the Bible. You are quoting scripture to your purposes, and that to me is specifically wicked. You know, when you spit that phrase at Ben Shapiro, my friend Ben Shapiro, and you know, I understand this. All of you who love Ben, and I love Ben, and Jordan Peterson, you all want to see them find Jesus because you know what joy and freedom that gives you, and you certainly feel that it alters your relationship with God. But when I think about this, to be honest with you, you know, and I know some people will disagree with this, but life is not a game show where you guess the name of God and you get to go to heaven. Honk, you know, yes, the name is Jesus. I look at Ben's life and I think if Ben were to embrace Jesus Christ, it would cause devastation to his family, to the people who love him, to the people who listen to him.
No,
to
he
his
needs
position
to. He needs
in the
to
world.
embrace Christ.
I just have this feeling that God has put this guy where he wants him to do what he wants him to do. And as you know, I feel that, you know, the Jews were not abandoned by God.
Okay, I just want to go to you, Leonardo.
Well, they're not, but they have to accept Christ as their Lord and Savior.
There's a lot to break down in there.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a few things that I actually agreed with them on, but no. Especially when he said that him accepting Christ, that Ben Shapiro accepting Christ would actually be bad for him, basically. That, like, what? No.
Just go ahead. I want to hear.
Okay,
That was...
Number one, he starts off with being Jewish and then says he converted to Christianity. Like, which one is it, buddy? You can't have both, okay? Number two, if you're really a Christian, you would know that the Bible says, Jesus says, he says, I came to bring the sword to set daughter against mother, son against father. And that is quoted as, when you become a Christian, you will literally go up even against your own family because of your belief in God. So this crap about it's not a game show, and he's sort of preaching universalism here and saying that if...
no, that was another thing that I was saying. He was kind of preaching universalism.
And Shapiro became Christian, it would destroy his family. You don't actually know that. He might have such a powerful effect where it's like, oh, really, I saw the light and I see what it is.
It would destroy his family. Yeah, that's crazy.
The last thing I'm going to say is this idea that the Jews are still God's chosen people. This is what you have.
Yeah, they're not God's chosen people. Everyone is
an evangelical Christian.
Everyone who accepts Christ into their heart is one of God's chosen people.
rhino community, the Republicans of old, who still want to hold on to this idea that somehow Jews are God's chosen people. And they're totally, completely contradicting the Bible, which says the Jews that were God's chosen people became Christian. Followed Christ. That is the Israel.
And then the Pharisees are the ones who are still Jews now. And Jesus spoke out against the Pharisees a ton. We actually just talked about at the beginning of this. Your cats are chosen too? I don't know about that.
Are Israel.
We were just talking about in Matthew 21, 28 through 32.
Israel.
Like at the beginning of the stream, where it talks about when Jesus came in to Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. And he
this whole thing that you're still trying to do with the Jews are God's chosen people, that was Old Testament stuff. So when you hang on to that, you deny Jesus's divinity and the fact that he came as the Messiah. So it's total trash.
Well, and I think what's weird too, as a black woman myself, I thought it was weird. I'm not even joking. That Candace isn't the first black chick to be thrown out, and I that's why I tell people that the critical argument about God is paramount to even the argument about race. One of the reasons why there is replacement migration with white countries is similar to recent, I'm just gonna be careful with my words, but I would say non-Christian influencers of certain backgrounds and groups having a history. The Weinsteins being some of them, some of the other creators that are even my friends, so I don't want to drag them. Taking pictures in front of the Arc de, I think it's Titus, the Arc de Triomphe, even in France, flipping it off, basically, arches that celebrate the sacking of the temple. Now, what's funny is the Bible talks about Judaistic terrorism, even back in the Bible, right? There was the Zealots. It talks about it in the old days. I mean, there's Barabbas, right? These are like literal, like insurrectionist kind of individuals who were troublemakers in the Roman Empire. And even then, they couldn't even graft in Israel ever during the time, or the kingdom of Israel and Judah, because they were so unruly and there was so much like terrorism and uprising and mobs that were going on. They never could actually appease them. Part of the literal crucifixion of Christ is because these people could not be ruled and they were afraid of another uprising, right? So they were trying to, Pilate was trying to pacify and bring peace to a very unruly people. But I find it to be interesting because what I find this argument to be, and this is why I find it to be important, is that certain groups in power in the United States want Christians to be weak. And there's this idea of you should never exercise or wield your faith like a sword, right? That saying Christ is king or, using the Bible like a weapon is unchristian. And that to me comes from a false theology representing that Christianity is passive and it is somehow about courting love. That we're supposed to ignore the fact, like when people tell me like, you share racist stuff, how is that in line with Jesus? You go, well, Jesus is the Son of God, but he also is God, Trinitarianly speaking. So there were moments where God literally punished the king, Saul being one of them, for literally refusing to wipe out entire nations. And to this day, because of the refusal to wipe out Amalek, they still have problems with the Amalekites down the road today. We still have Arab issues because of the Hittites, some of the other groups that even you go back even further, that they refused, that they had bashes within their offspring. So God literally was trying to prevent future problems by bringing judgment that seemed cruel. And when God ordered the judgment of people, he ordered the slaughter of every animal. And I think it's crucial when Saul came back, King Saul in the Old Testament, when he came back with the spoils of war, bringing back, I believe it was some of the women, I think he even brought the king back
You
one
fucking
of them,
attacked
in captivity.
I'm
It
not
was like,
going
well,
to.
we just captured them. And it mentions, I think this is crucial in the scripture, that they could hear the sound of like baying or whatever from the sheep, meaning God even was like, you were supposed to kill the animals because this was supposed to be a civilization that was incongruent with who you are. And so it's ironic to me, since we do acknowledge the Old Testament. I believe it was some of the women. I think he even brought the king back in one of them in cap.
Was he talking about Saul?
Activity. It was like, well, we just captured them, and it mentions, I think this is crucial in the scripture, that they could hear the sound of like baying or whatever. Right. Saul being one of them, for literally refusing to wipe out entire nations, and to this day, because of the refusal to wipe out Amalek, they still have problems with the Amalekites down the road today. We still have Arab issues because of the Hittites, some of the other groups that even you go back even further, that they refused, that they had bashes within their offspring. So God literally was trying to prevent future problems by bringing judgment that seemed cruel. And when God ordered the judgment of people, he ordered the slaughter, even every animal. And I think it's crucial when Saul came back, King Saul in the Old Testament, when he came back with the spoils of war, bringing back, I believe it was some of the women. I think he even brought the king back in one of them in captivity. It was like, well, we just captured them. And it mentions, I think this is crucial in the scripture, that they could hear the sound of like baying or whatever from the sheep, meaning God even was like, you were supposed to kill the animals because this was supposed to be a civilization that was incongruent with who you are. And so it's ironic to me, since we do acknowledge the Old Testament, we do acknowledge the Torah, that they're like, well, don't you follow a God who just wants you to like just step aside and let Christianity be a religion of peace that just lets anyone step on it? It's like, no, I follow the God of the New and the Old Testament. I do follow Jesus Christ, who came to fulfill the promise. He came to fulfill the law, but it doesn't say that he abolished it. He fulfilled it. And so that doesn't mean that God doesn't have a heart of judgment, of war. The Crusades are not unjust. They're not evil. And so what I don't like here is it's the same thing I don't like politically, and you could weigh in on this, is I don't like that the right wing is full of a bunch of converts who recently left the left. So we have these homosexuals and all these blacks and women and whores and different things that are like, atheists.
Although Candace Owens was one of those people. So, It's when they keep to their ways, like the gays, basically, I guess, is who I'm talking about. Oh, you douche. Are you gonna fucking hit me because you got convinced by... Don't do it. Don't fucking do it.
All these people that are like, well, I left the left because it rejected me. But they don't actually stand on anything. They don't have any values. They don't have any standards of ideology. They just aren't accepted somewhere, so they absorb in, and they get given jobs and money and influence. Why? Because they do the same thing that the Clavin's doing here, is gatekeeping out fundamentally real Christianity that could take power. And it's a power structure challenge that they don't like. And ultimately what they don't want is God in power or anyone who's fighting for that. So like, that's all I was going to say is I don't like this because like, well, he's our friend. We wouldn't want to hurt him or take him out of power. Why not?
Yeah. Well, the thing you said about the people coming from the left, it would be one thing if they had a true conversion, but their whole thing
like Candace Owens did. But like Dave Rubin, he's still fucking gay as shit, having a surrogate with it. We shouldn't accept that in the conservative movement. If he quit being gay, then yeah, that's fine.
like, oh, this has gone too far, so let's go over here. And it's like, no, you have to understand what the right's really about. The right is really about preserving the Western European ideals that created and funded this country. And like it or not, they were Western European. And I don't even classify as Western European. I'm Albanian. So, we can recognize that we aren't necessarily the ones who were the foundings of this country, but we recognize how much better it is. So these people come over and then they still want to bring over their diversity, equity, and inclusion bullshit policies, which are behind, they don't, it's like when Californians move to Texas and they continue to vote Democrat. They admit that everything they had over there was bad, and they're like, let's continue with the same exact policies. And the other thing too is that, you have to remember that the evangelical right has been infiltrated and subverted. And also, in my opinion, and this is my humble opinion, because, I don't want to set these people apart from Christians, but my experience of evangelical Christianity, as limited as it is in these mega churches, does not feel grounded in a true Christianity and a Christianity of like where you are really wrestling with yourself and your own fallen nature and your own sin, which is what I understand Christianity to be. A lot of evangelical is this sort of outward looking and judgment of the world and judgment of people who they don't perceive as Christians. And if you go into Orthodox Christianity, that is not what it is. Mm-hmm. And so they've been really infiltrated. And actually, I don't remember the exact place, but maybe somebody online does remember this, but there was a version of the Bible that was edited and put out that puts something in there specifically about supporting Israel. And that was the thing that has been used to whip up evangelical support for the nation of Israel. Mm-hmm. It is such a contradiction that you have, I think it's the show. Yeah, somebody's saying it's the Schofield Bible. Thank you. Does anybody remember exactly what the phrase was? Because I don't remember what it was, but it's oxymoronic that you have a group of Christians going, yeah, let's support Israel, the country of Israel, where if you actually read the Bible and you read the predictions of Revelation, you are supporting the coming of the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Because the Jews say they're waiting for their Messiah. So they don't recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So who are they actually? And they say their Messiah is the one who's going to rule all of the world from Israel. Well, if you cross-reference that with Christian predictions, the one that's coming to rule the world is the Antichrist.
Right. Well, and look, and I don't disagree with that. I think that the Antichrist will be the Jewish Messiah. They would say that's anti-Semitic, but I believe ideologically, theologically, exegetically, whatever you want to say, if you look at Scripture, the Antichrist will be the Messiah for the Jews. But
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, when they bring about the third temple.
Go ahead.
Because I'm so tired of this bullshit that saying the Antichrist is anti-Semitic. Okay, well, guess what? You're anti-Christian. And why is that any better? Because a lot of this anti-Christian ideology, because the Jews want to always talk about how, anti-Semitism has fueled genocide of the Jews. Okay, anti-Christian has fueled a much more massive genocide of Christians, specifically European Christians. Go look up Holodomor, the Russian Red Revolution. It is incessant. So the fact that these people are unwilling to defend their fellow Christians against this hatred of them based on their religion because they don't want to be called anti-Semitic, I have no patience for this.
Well, and yes, and I was talking to someone recently because I had wrote something. By the way, people, I will not delete tweets because I get messages from anyone else other than my family because either A, it's causing them harm or whatever. And sometimes I care more about family relationships than I do about looking right on the internet, which is just crazy thing that we forgot about, that it's more important. Sometimes love requires humility and remembering that your personal life behind the scenes is way more important than the perception of your life. People can call me a horrible person, say whatever they want. I have a great life, a great wife, a growing family, and I really do love living. But I said that Daily Wire and the people of Daily Wire were coming of the Antichrist. And the reason why I said that was because 1 John 2:22 says something important. Now, even if you are an atheist, you are still bound under the principles of Christianity because the very definition of our country was defined in the terms of open or free society, this liberalism, on the condition that they were a moral and religious people bound to Christian principles, Christianity, and a belief in God. There didn't have to be such outward stipulations of regulation because the ultimate authority of self-regulation and the authority of Jesus Christ was most important. A good example of that today would be what I just said. I don't walk around and delete tweets because a Jewish organization is calling me to delete them. I would delete something because a family member would call me and it's upsetting them and they want to have a discussion and they would like me to present myself, more thoroughly or more articulate on the internet. They're talking about a society not where there's no regulation. You say whatever you want. You do whatever you want. You don't give a crap who it hurts. It's that you are self-regulated. You are concerned about God and your family and honor and respect. These types of things were what were to lead and guide the country. But he does say in 1 John 2:22 that who is the liar? And quote, who is the liar? He says directly, it is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. The Christ, a lot of people who are not maybe educated, is not Jesus' last name. He's not Jesus Christ, okay? He's Jesus the Christ. Whoever denies the Father and the Son, this is the Antichrist. And no one who denies the Son has the Father, but whoever confesses the Son has the Father as well. So when Clavin's saying something universal like, well, I don't think that you just find a name for God and you discover it and that makes God who it is. Correct, Clavin, that is correct. However, that wouldn't make sense then if God didn't have a name and didn't clearly define his name. He says what he is, who he is, I should say. Right. And it says here, he's like, I don't think God abandoned the Jews. Okay, let's not argue that. Let's just say we'll accept your definition that Christians were grafted in, using biblical language, to the tree, that we're grafted, right? Like taking a branch. If people don't know what grafting is, when they're pruning trees, you can literally take an apple branch, maybe apply it to an orange tree, and you can literally grow an apple off of an orange tree. It's a different fruit, a different branch, but you can graft branches onto a tree. So even if you take his theological perspective accurately, that Christians are grafted in, the scripture says directly that if you deny the Son, you don't have the Father. So it's like this is crazy too, that I think that they're trying to take advantage of. And I mean this genuinely. I want to hear your perspective on this. I think that there's a huge push to take advantage of evangelicals who often are not rooted in tradition or in scripture, or are just getting modern interpretations of scripture.
You fucking attack,
to
Yellow.
Completely accept that Judaism is Torah-based faith. So they want people to think that Judaism is the Old Testament. There was the 400 years of silence, right, at the end of the minor prophets. And then they just somehow don't care about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And the only difference between Christianity and Judaism is our belief in Jesus. Not realizing that Talmudic Judaism is closer to witchcraft, in my opinion. New Age mysticism, especially Kabbalah and different, other things that these people believe, is more close to that than it genuinely is to the actual scripture. That's my personal belief. Some would say that's destructive, but I don't see these as my brothers and sisters who are just missing Christ. I see them as enemies of the cross of Christ, and they prove it time and time again that maybe they work with Christians, but they take advantage of them and keep them directly weak. And again, this is our Holy Week, by the way. This is Palm Sunday to Easter. The right-wing media has Christians defending or fighting anti-Semitism and trying to police who can say Christ is king. This is a universally terrible thing to be doing, and shows a mask-off moment to me that, these people do not care about your Holy Week. They should shut the hell up for a week. Let us practice our faith and step away, and don't tell me what to do or to say. And if you want to call me a bad person, Leonard, I'll go to you on this right now. People say, well, Elijah, you use harsh words. You say mean things. I do. And guess what? If I've got to fight on the front lines and what the front lines needs is hardened people, that's what you want fighting on your front lines. You don't want little pussy-footed people fighting on the front lines who are afraid of stepping on people's feet and stuff. You need tough people who don't care about offending people, who will say what's true, and sometimes that comes with some baggage. Unfortunately, it doesn't make the baggage good, right, respectable, holy, or anything, but what it does mean is we are each called to a certain purpose and calling. It says, Live up to the calling to which you were called. It literally says that in Scripture. I was called to the front lines of ideological, biological, and literal spiritual warfare. And if that comes with some baggage, I won't make excuses, but I won't stop fighting just because I have some issues. Leonardo, I don't know if you agree with that, but I know you have a lot to say on this too. And I know you're educated, and I know you're not stupid on this, and the chat knows that too.
These Jews.
Yeah, well, I agree with a lot of what you have to say there. I think here's an issue, okay? People don't really understand the history of Christianity and what's happened. What you have with the evangelicals is a bunch of little popes. It's a bunch of people who
I hope that he pots out because that helps me out way more than
to really understand this. You'd have to go back to the original schism that happened. It was about 1000 AD between the Orthodox Christian Church and the Roman Church.
Yes.
At that point, you had a schism because the Pope wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he didn't want to be just one of the 5 bishops of Christianity that held the religion. He said, no, I want to be Christ's representative on earth. So yes, 1054. Thank you guys for the dates. And so at that point, the Pope split, okay? And so there's that first initial split. And then what happens after that is you have the Protestant Reformation. And the Protestant Reformation is just another mirror imagery of what happened with the original Pope splitting. It's somebody going, hey, I don't really, it was Martin Luther, posting his grievances with the church, which you could say were accurate or not. But again, it's this break with tradition, and I want to do things my way. And so then the Protestant Reformation basically opens the gateway for all of these splinters and factions to come from, where all of these people get to decide what the Bible means to them. And none of them are rooted in tradition or in giving over to the what the Orthodox believe, which is the Holy Spirit guiding the minds of the church fathers who have been in the practice of studying religion from the beginning. And so now what you've got is you just have the repercussions of that now with evangelicalism. You have all these independent thinkers, which aligns right with the American spirit of rugged individualism. And I will decide what's right for me, which is, literally what leads us into trouble, because even the Bible says a heart's man will lead him, to the self-destruction. Man's heart will lead him to self-destruction, right? Your heart doesn't necessarily know what's correct, because things that are wrong can appear good to you when you do not have spiritual discernment. And I have been a person who has done that in the past under the same guidance, where I thought, oh, okay, if my heart says it's true. Yeah, well, your heart can lead you to do a lot of bullshit because you can deceive yourself because you want to do something, and then you find a philosophy that justifies it. So this is what we have currently with the evangelicals. They are creating their own narrative, and so they can be misled by having a bunch of Jewish people come in and be like, oh no, you should support the state of Israel. The other thing that people really fail to notice is that modern day Judaism has little resemblance to the ancient Hebrews of the Old Testament. The Orthodox Christianity, actually, if you go ahead and look at their practice, it resembles incredibly the practice of the Hebrews of the Old Testament. So what happened was, when Christ came, that priestly class did follow Jesus and became Christians. The ones who did not follow Jesus were the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the ones that Jesus was calling the synagogue of Satan. These people rejected Jesus. And in 70 AD, when the second temple was destroyed, they scattered to the wind. And Judaism was basically lost until around the I think it was the 3rd century, when it came up in reaction to Christianity. That is why the Talmud is so anti-Christian. In the Talmud, it says that Jesus is literally in hell. In
I don't even like saying that.
Semen, of Satan's semen and horseshit. How do you compromise with people who say this about your God?
About God. It's not just our
it's
God.
a
It is
control
God.
mechanism. And so this is what I mean here. And this is why it's really important to denote two things. It's important to denote the contradiction in arguments. People say this is a religion, not an ethnicity, and not a race of people. And if that were the case, then there should be no issue with criticism and disagreement, right? Because if it's a belief system that you are disagreeing with, then that would not have any reflection on your hate for the individual. It would have to do on the hate for the direction they've chosen to take their life or on their influence. But if you say that the criticism of the ideology or the religion that they have is a reflection of who they are, then there's some sort of ethnic connection, which there is.
Oh.
And with Caucasians, with white people, there is a connection, especially, particularly in America, with Christianity that is an absolute truth. And what I think is crazy is that what you will find, and it proves this, that the right-wing media, I spoke to someone I love very deeply, who I have not trying to be critical of at all, because they do watch the show sometimes. But they said, why is it? They asked me a question, said, what do you have against Shapiro, against Boring? I said, well, ultimately, number one, they told my entire audience to get vaccinated and to ignore my advice during the pandemic. One of the most famous tweets from Shapiro ever, directed at me and you guys watching the show, calling us idiots, dopes, for not getting vaccinated with the COVID vaccine. So because we're on YouTube, I'll say to the extent of, well, when you try to medically harm people that support me, that I rely on for my income, and you call us all idiots and try to, undermine my credibility because your wife's a doctor, that's kind of personal.
My
then I was
wife's
asked,
a doctor,
well, why do you
folks.
hold this against him? I go, well, behind the scenes, I have to be very careful here because of NDAs. Certain individuals had called my old CEO or been at dinners, not with direct calls, and really tried to put into his head, why do you hire this person? Why do you work with this person? He's anti-Semitic. He's this. He's that. And they did the job of the left. I got more pushback from some of these individuals at other networks who would talk to my boss to undermine and get me fired. So they've tried to remove my ability to provide for my family. Not only that, there's things I can't even say, but they've come after me, my reputation. They've slandered me in the media. These people, besides this topic, have done things to me, or tried to do things, I should say, that never materialized, that makes me realize they are reprehensible and disgusting individuals who have no respect for civil liberty, no respect for my family, no respect for me, and definitely no respect for my faith in God or my God directly, which should be tantamount to all else, should be the most important issue. So in saying that, if you want to know about the reflection of this direct issue, why did I call them out? And it's because of this one issue. I'm going to read this because this is really important that I read this from Jeremy Boring. Before I read that, I just want to give a huge shout out to one of our sponsors for today. Guys, real quickly, our sponsor for today, of course, is thepurgestore.com. They are selling products directly to help you with gut health and clearing out your gut. Some of you guys listen to this and you guys have actually purchased these products. A gut cleanse is really important because we have all types of invasive bacteria, invasive parasites, even in many cases, that can be eradicated through natural means. And you could go to the store and buy 20 different ingredients and you can clear your gut. A lot of you have done water cleanses, which you should do. You've done smoothie cleanses. You might have bloating. You have mood issues. These things are directed to your gut health. Now, one of you went through this whole program, did the gut cleanse, and it's not only changed your son's mood, it fixed his issues that you thought were IBS. A lot of times we're looking for ways to clean out our gut. Luckily, my friends at thepurgestore.com have created. You feel good. It's a disgusting product. Anyway, Leonardo's on. I want to go to this quote from Jeremy Boring. And this is what I was going to say, my point about why I really have a problem with this conversation and why I would like to connect it to those of you that are atheists, those of you that are intellectually, maybe you're just religious by proxy or you respect Christianity. I think that's a fair statement to just respect it, and maybe you don't believe in Jesus personally. Here's what it says here. Jeremy Boring says this about anti-Semitism and saying Christ is king. He said, when did this become anti-Semitic? AKA, when did this become so? It always has been so. It is so. Yes, innately. Additionally, saying Christ is king for an evil purpose, like using it as a weapon to express your hatred or disdain for the Jews, is a grave sin. It plainly violates the third commandment of thou shalt not carry forth the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Surely, if I rape and murder someone like Hamas did on 10/7, here we go. Okay, here we go. And all the while, I shout at them, Christ.
If you're gonna just slip some propaganda in there, everything else you say is gonna be just totally out.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. Also, the Bible says thou shalt not lie as well. So when you're pretending to care about an issue just to defend another country, you should probably be honest with your audience. And all the while, I shout at them, Christ is king or God is great. We should agree that I have committed 3 grievous crimes, not 2. Rape, yes. Murder, yes. But also the great crime of implicating God in the first 2 crimes. So one must be cautious how one uses the name of God. God will not.
We aren't using it. Are we doing it in a way? Are we doing it in a way that is hateful? No, we're not raping and no, we're not doing that.
political rivals is to carry forth his name in vain. We'll keep going. Here we go. Jesus Christ is king. Sure enough. I love that's like the fact that we have to leave an addendum there. Jesus Christ is king. Yeah, I guess. King of heaven and earth, king of Jew and Gentile alike. Yet a bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not smother. So don't use his name as a cudgel to bash those in whom the light of God yet flickers. If you do, you are a blasphemer and an anti-Semite and like, why would you even need to add anything beyond blasphemer? Like, if you're a Christian, they're a blasphemer. It doesn't matter what else they are. And an anti-Semite and a piece of crap generally, and the fear of
Kanye's recent anti-Christian.
What just happened?
Support Israel. Ben Shapiro. It always has been so. It is so. Yes, innately. Additionally, saying Christ is king for an evil purpose, like using it as a weapon to express your hatred or disdain for the Jews, is a grave sin. It plainly violates the third commandment of "Thou shalt not carry forth the name of thy Lord, the Lord thy God, in vain." Surely, if I rape and murder someone like Hamas did on 10/7, here we go. Okay, here we go. And all the while, I shout at them, Christ.
If you're gonna just slip some propaganda in there, everything else you say is gonna be just totally out.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. Also, the Bible says thou shalt not lie as well. So when you're pretending to care about an issue just to defend another country, you should probably be honest with your audience. And all the while I shout at them, Christ is king or God is great, we should agree that I have committed 3 grievous crimes, not 2. Rape, yes. Murder, yes. But also the great crime of implicating God in the first 2 crimes. So one
How are
must
you
be
comparing
cautious
that
how one
to-
uses the name of God. God will not be mocked. Invoking him in the vain self-promotion or to troll Jews or to attack your political rivals is to carry forth his name in vain. We'll keep going. Here we go. Jesus Christ is king. Sure enough. I love that's like the fact that we have to leave an addendum there. Jesus Christ is king. Yeah, I guess. King of heaven and earth, king of Jew and Gentile alike. Yet a bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not smother. So don't use his name as a cudgel to bash those in whom the light of God yet flickers. If you do, you are a blasphemer and an anti-Semite and like, why would you even need to add anything beyond blasphemer? Like, if you're a Christian, they're a blasphemer. It doesn't matter what else they are. And an anti-Semite and a piece of crap generally, and the fear of the Lord is clearly not in you. These are bold claims here, and it will be, though. So I'm going to go to you,
What's
Leonardo.
so interesting?
Yeah.
There's no commandment that says thou shalt not be an anti-Semite. So I don't understand why these people are up in arms. Okay. Number one. Number two, they always want to present, they want to loop things in. I want to be really careful here. Any criticism of a Jewish person or Jewish policy or Israel has now been dubbed anti-Semitic, which I think is total bullshit. Okay. If you are a human being, you are open to criticism. You are fallible. If you do things that are wrong, I get to criticize you. I do not care what your background is. I will criticize Albanians who are doing stupid things for sure. Okay. So that's crap. Okay. Number one. Number two, the other thing they like to loop is if you are supposedly anti-Semitic, they also want to loop in that you are hateful. And I guess there is a bit of this that I've seen, but for the most part, I don't see a hatred and a vitriol. What I see is a hatred of the policies that are being put in place that are aimed at dismantling this Western European Christian country. And that is well-placed hatred. You should hate policies that want to make you a slave. You should be angry about that. They want to completely take that away so you have no motive to fight. And I think it's total bullshit.
This is exactly where I agree with you. And I want to go to there's this Candace Owens fan account called Standis Owens.
We know who has that account. I think he knows who has that account also.
Who put up a video, and I want to see if I can find it here for a second. He put up a video from the Daily Wire, which, by the way, I want to say this. I really like Matt Walsh individually. I think he's really correct on a lot of issues. And he put up this post that was a flashback when Daily Wire contributor Matt Walsh suggests that Americans do not have a patriotic duty to support Israel. Ben Shapiro and CEO Jeremy Boring quickly interrupt him and shut down the conversation. Before I play this, this video is vital because this is the point that I wanted to ultimately make. Is when I was asked by the person that I love why I'm against, you know, Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro and these people, why am I against them? Am I like the left? Am I like BLM? Am I trying to destroy my side? I hear this all the time. It's infighting. That's a side note, by the way, that all the people that are saying Christ is King is anti-Semitic and talking about, you know, unity are all the pro-DeSantis people that literally infought and caused a civil war in our movement to get Trump elected. So shut up. I don't care. Don't virtue signal to me. I know who you are. I know you by name. I have receipts. Secondly, with this statement, I go, the reason why is I'm not against all hosts at Daily Wire. I'm not against Matt Walsh. I'm not against Michael Knowles. I've seen the criticisms. Why I said Daily Wire overall is because they exist to allow a certain level of conversation to be monetizable, aka to allow a standard of if you want to earn a lot of money or you want to be well known, you're going to work for Fox or Daily Wire or these things. And what they say you can talk about is what becomes universally accepted. And what they say you can't talk about not just becomes, you know, oh, they say go find another job. I mean, go find another political economy that reflects your ideas to create a business under. That's not easy. That's not as easily done as said. Is that when we start talking about things like that we really want to solve, like who controls the Federal Reserve, how to get the people who control it out of our country, how to remove, when we say drain the swamp, who are the people that are the swamp? Which families are controlling the cash reserve? Who's controlling this? If we go down that road, we are labeled hateful and bigots by our own side. And they will join the ones that could defend us, that could help us have a voice to make a real right-wing movement, actually end up sabotaging us internally, which makes someone who claims to be a friend and yet undermines you internally behind your back and squashes your ability to gain influence is actually worse than your enemy. Because there's at least respect for someone who hates you and tells you to your face, I hate you and I want you to eat shit and die, versus somebody who claims to love Christianity but wants Christians to be weak. Someone who claims to love the right-wing movement but, you know, doesn't want a real right-wing government to be established. Someone who says, yeah, Christ is king is true, but doesn't want people who really live that out to be in power in our government. That's why I'm against these people, because they are gatekeepers at best, but at worst, they are literal roadblocks to the formation of a coalition government, Christian or not, that believe in the Christian power principle foundations of European Union and the fact, I don't mean the modern European Union, of our ability to actually overthrow governments which are held by strongholds like communists, etc., and to take back our country under Christianity, get rid of usury. These things are vital, and they do not care. They will have you fighting about porn in children's books in school, but will not let you talk about who wrote those books. That's why I stand against them, because it's evil. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. I digress.
I mean, I agree with you. I think that a lot of the people, you know, they don't want to face this idea that, hey, we actually should have Christian leaders leading a Christian country. This is where I have complete disagreement with them when they say things like, oh, you know, diversity is our strength. I mean, we have Ilhan Omar leading a white Christian country, and then wondering, I mean, she's not leading the country, right? But she's leading, she's representing a white Christian municipality, and it's like, okay, this isn't acceptable. If I go to the middle of Afghanistan, I am not going to find a Scandinavian woman who's the governor of a town there. So why does that have to be okay with us? We've got a Muslim PM in the UK. We've got a Muslim mayor in Ireland. There are all these Western European countries that have elected people that are hostile to the native populations to lead them. But if we were to turn it around and say, oh, okay, well, let's do the same in the non-Western European countries, all of a sudden, we're a bunch of colonizers. And I say enough is enough. This is bullshit. Okay, and Western Europeans have to take responsibility for this bullshit too, because their fear of pretending to be like, of being afraid of being called racist or anti-Semitic, and their overly empathetic nature has gotten us into this mess. So we could sit here and blame the Jews all day, but all they're doing is hacking a weakness of ours, because Europeans are some of the most empathetic people, such that it extends beyond people that look like them to other cultures and other nations. And they do not understand that those other cultures and other nations don't feel the same way towards you. So they will exploit your empathy for their own gain. Oh, yes, feel bad for me, feel bad for me. And all of a sudden, you know, you've lost control of your country to people who hate you because you were trying to be nice. Stop fucking being nice. Sorry, I shouldn't curse. Stop being nice. Stop being nice and actually start fighting for yourselves and your people, because nobody else is going to do it.
Right. I think this meme is absolutely important. It's all so tiresome. I'm going to play the clip for you because I want to show this, that this is the Matt Walsh clip where he's basically brought in and explains something, and he sees what is acceptable and unacceptable to
When
bring
was
up.
this, I
and the
wonder?
true nature of these
Been
media
during a
outlets
backstage?
ends up becoming visible. And what I want to caveat this with is to say, the reason why this show stays on the air, the reason why we are still on YouTube, although we could be gone tomorrow for whatever reason, is because we are not hateful. We don't just rant and you know, get angry and use racial slurs, although that may be justified in some positions. What we do is we're talking about ideas and we're being honest. But I also know that there are consequences for being honest about ideas. So hopefully we're going to continue to label these shows and do titles and stuff that just keep the narcs off our back. However, watch this.
But at the same time, I think one thing, the people that you're talking about, one thing that annoys them is when they see, I don't remember who tweeted, someone tweeted something like, if you're an American patriot, it means you're pro-Israel or something like that. Yeah. This idea that like it is your patriotic duty to have this particular feeling about another country, no matter what the other country is, I don't care what country it is. So that goes too far on that side of it, and I think they're kind of reacting. It's kind of what you're saying. Yep. They're reacting to that.
I do think. I do think that there is something patriotic about supporting our allies, because.
Oh, cringe, bro. Come on.
And having formed those alliances, and if we're all operating in a kind of good faith where those alliances are concerned, then there is a kind of patriotism.
Yeah, but you don't have a you don't have a patriotic you do not have a patriotic duty to support any country that is not your own.
Well,
yeah.
I will say that I think that what that statement is missing is the phrase at the end, right now. Okay, so I don't think that you have a patriotic duty to eternally support any other country, because circumstances change. The country, I mean, how many times have we seen alliances change and people end up on the other side of those alliances? But the idea that in a conflict between a democratic ally and an actual terror group, that it doesn't connect to any sort of, we're not talking about nationalism now, which is just attachment to country. We're talking about patriotism, which goes to underlying principle, that you have no duty at all to support a fellow democracy that is an ally in its own battle for survival.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Raise some patriotism principles in the same way that we raise patriotism principles to say that if Hitler were about to overrun Britain, people who are saying, well, you know what, it doesn't implicate the United States at all, patriotism at all, to watch Hitler overrun Britain. And it seems like it kind of implicates patriotism.
Leonardo, I'm going right to you on this. Did you see what I saw? The butting in?
Yeah, I mean, he's just he wants to make sure that we never stop supporting Israel. Don't ever stop supporting Israel. Oh, you're getting a little too close to the fire. Okay, why don't you go look at what the founding fathers said about getting involved in foreign affairs? They said don't do it under any circumstances. It has nothing to do with us. They said that across the board. Okay, let's go look at where we're sending most of our money and when this started happening. Israel is the top recipient of U.S. foreign aid. Top. Okay, and they maneuvered their way up there through AIPAC and other Jewish lobbies. Nobody wants to talk about this. So you're taking money out of the pockets of Americans, which last time I looked around, it's not like Americans all have this excess money that's just easy to give away, and you're giving it to literally everybody else except Americans. And frankly, I'm sick and tired of it, and it's total bullshit. Because number one, taxation is theft, and it's unconstitutional. It is in the Constitution that no man should be taxed on their income. Okay, they created a unconstitutional law in 1913 when they created the Federal Reserve Bank, and then at the same time they created income tax to fund their little scheme there. So that's a problem. And then the second thing is, if you are going to tax it, at least turn that money back around and help the very people who are paying the money. This is one of the things that I experienced in New York, for example. When I was in New York City, okay, I had to pay like crazy level of taxes. And then I remember when the whole Obamacare thing started and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, everybody's going to have health care. I went to apply for health care, which the taxes were being taken out, the funding for that was being taken out of my money in taxes. And they go, sorry, you don't qualify. You make too much money. So excuse me, I'm paying the money for this thing called healthcare.
What a piece of shit. He tried to see if he did the bot out strat and it didn't work.
Universal health care, yet I am not entitled to it because I make too much money. That's total and utter bullshit.
Well, I want to talk about a little bit of this further with you about basically Candace's firing and the people she was up against. We're talking about Rabbi Shmuley, who's going to be in a debate with Alex Jones. However, I happen to think that this may be a little too spicy for YouTube. It's good to know that our YouTube audience is coming back after they hit our channel recently and deleted a ton of our videos, and then the views just like halved. It was really sad. They deleted a ton of videos and they hit us, but I think over time people start to find us again and go, oh yeah, wait, they aren't deleted. They're just not showing up anymore. So I'm happy you guys are coming back. But the rest of the show we're doing on Rumble directly. So if you guys are in YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and put the
Why would
link
you have done that to
Rumble.
me?
What you're going to do is you're going to go to let me go here. You're going to go to rumble.com/slightly offensive.
So you gonna smack me again?
This chat. It's a lot less filtered. I don't censor it unless there's something illegal that's said, and then for the most part, or maybe blasphemous, I don't really know. But you're going to join the chat here. So if you go here, we're going to talk about Rabbi Shmuley, this craziness that's going on, and the fact is that we think these people have lost the war. But most importantly, never forget to be doing everything in love. You'll never hear in any of this conversation a vitriolic statement or hatred for anybody, but yet a defense for Christ. We said be prepared to give a defense. That means also physical as well. Sometimes you might have to defend your family from things that are going out because people will attack you for your faith. And the problem with this stuff that I want to remind you, there will be a day coming, like Jesus said, where you may need a sword, right? These things happen. However, don't forget to be praying always for those who persecute you. Bless those who persecute you. Pray for them. Have grace. And remember that sometimes, ultimately, are you preaching the gospel? Christ is king, but also we want to have him, there to be people who are serving the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And so you have to ask, are you serving him? I'm working on that with my own life. I'm very far from perfect, but I want you to remember the importance of that as we get into a very dark age. Anyway, I'll see you in about 2.5 minutes with Leonardo. We're going back up. We're talking about Shmuley. We'll take a quick break, and we'll see you over at rumble.com/slightly offensive. And don't forget, support this show as we're demonetized everywhere at censored.tv, promo code offensive. That's censored.tv, promo code OFFENSIVE for 20% off a membership. Thank you so much to Censored.tv for supporting the show and to everyone at Locals. You can also send super chats only at Rumble since we're demonetized at YouTube. To the rest of you guys watching this, have a great rest of the week. And everyone says Rumble sucks, but YouTube is gay. Yeah, sometimes I'd prefer a place that sucks over a place that's literally gay and won't let certain conversations happen. We'll see you over there in just a moment. Enjoy your 2 minutes, go pee, and we'll keep going on Rabbi Shmuley, the craziest looking person.
Wait, what the fuck is that?
We'll see you there.
Okay. See what he does here. Does he move that? I'm sorry, I have to attack your territories. Wait. Oh, you douche. You douche. What a fucking asshole. Why are you doing... No. That's not the plan. Okay, you're dead. Fine then, I just kill you. Fuck you. That pissed me off. Oh, what? And now he's gonna kill me for... Fuck off. What the fuck? Kill yourself. All right.